To begin.
Are you watching closely?
To begin.
Clytus, I'm bored.
How to start.
What plaything can you offer me today?
Okay, I hope I remember to put some sort of alarm sound before that, because there was a moment of sort of writer's panic today. I was listening to an episode of Scriptnotes. They were talking about HBO shows, and they didn't even bring up Westworld. And that's not a complaint. I'm not complaining that people didn't bring up Westworld. But my brain got to thinking about Westworld, and I loved Westworld. And then I realized as I'm thinking about Westworld, driving to work, that the opening scene of death makes no sense. I'll explain further. Or maybe I'll read you the scene. Because this is specific that I came up with fairly early in the process of putting the story together. There will be spoilers. There will be spoilers for Death, which just has a single draft right now. By the time you hear this episode, I hope to be working on draft 2, because I think that's the first thing I'm going to do on the summer break. And there will be spoilers for Westworld, especially season 1. It also kind of spoils season 2, 3, 4, and 5? There were 5 seasons, right? Yeah. All those seasons, it's interesting that people were complaining like it doesn't come back for another season. I'm like, each season kind of had a good ending. Any season could be the end of the story. But then they found ways to add and expand. And I loved it. Anyway, the scene and then the explanation. Fade in, exterior, forest road, day. Should probably say afternoon to be specific. Anyway, this is first draft. An SUV follows the road cautiously. It is autumn, cold. Maybe there's snow on the ground. I should say scattered snow. I shouldn't nitpick. I just want to read the scene. We hear the conversation from within the vehicle before we can make out much of the specifics. The first line we hear clearly is Polly, OS. At the end of season 1, the big twist is interior SUV continuous. We've got 5 passengers and our driver is Kitty, 18. In the front passenger seat is AJ, 18, trans boy. AJ wears a t-shirt with Dr. Wrench from Evil Ed on it. Why didn't I have a description of Kitty? Weird. AJ holds a small camera pointed out the side window. Major spoilers. Kitty's our main character through Death, parts 1, 2, and 3. She should get a description, but also I feel like she's sort of open. I think I wrote this script. I'll get back to the scene in a moment. I know I wrote this script thinking of, like, imagining I could make this movie myself. This would be the thing where I finally actually make a movie. And so I have an idea of what Kitty is, especially how she feels as a character, and it would come down to casting to make it work. AJ is more specific in that regard because of AJ is trans. That is an aspect that comes up in multiple parts of the story. That he's wearing this t-shirt is just to establish right up front for horror fans. Oh, this guy likes horror films. Well, more specific for really good horror fans because they might recognize Dr. Wrench and Evil Ed. But any fan should be able to tell that it's some sort of film thing and AJ's into movies immediately. Then it continues to establish more of that. AJ holds a small camera pointed out the side window, filming trees passing. So, out of context, AJ is doing some coverage shots of the woods for potential use later in their movie. Kitty, what are you talking about? In the second row are Polly, a girl with hair so short she doesn't have to deal with it, and Vic, non-binary but leaning feminine. Vic has a fidget toy in her hand but is not currently doing anything with it. Polly, Westworld? Without putting the camera down, AJ turns his head. AJ, with Yul Brynner? Polly, annoyed. No. In the third row are Elma, vaguely European, overweight but comfortable with her body, wearing clothes more appropriate for the beach than this autumn forest. A see-through blouse over a bra, short shorts. And Richie, who looks out of place with this group. Richie is asleep. Elma, the King and I guy? I don't want to talk about musicals. The power dynamics in that one are problematic. Vic, we're not talking about musicals. Elma, good. Beat. Was he Kojak or Columbo? AJ. Who? Kitty has her phone connected to the GPS. A call comes now. Kitty's ringtone is Don't Fear the Reaper. Oh, this sentence needs to get reversed and rewrite. From Katie Tabram. So, a call comes now from Katie Tabram. Kitty's ringtone is Don't Fear the Reaper. Kitty declines. AJ looks over at her. AJ continued. Who's that? Elma. Yul Brynner. Kitty. Probably lose the signal halfway through the call anyway. AJ hesitates, looking at Kitty, before returning his attention to the second row. Polly. We weren't even talking about Yul Brynner. AJ cutting in. Yul Brynner was neither. Telly Savalas was Kojak. Peter Falk was Columbo. Kitty finds all this quite amusing. Elma. The grandpa from Princess Bride was Columbo? Vic. To Elma. Yes. To Polly. So what's the twist? Elma. Wow. I didn't get that at all. Switches to Fred Savage impression. Jesus, Grandpa, what did you read me this thing for? Doing a British accent now. It's elementary, unnamed grandson. Sorry, I should have done a British accent. Oh well. Vic, losing the thread. What the fuck was that? Polly, that's Sherlock Holmes, not Columbo. AJ, comfortably tag teaming this one with Polly. Oh, just one more thing. Not a deerstalker hat. Polly, right. Polly glances at AJ briefly, smiles, then abruptly loses the smile and looks away. Elma, I don't know what that is. To Kitty, is anyone else coming this weekend or is this all of us? Cut to. And so then we're out of that. We cut from that vehicle to a different vehicle, different characters. I actually thought I started with the scene with Frenchie, but it makes sense I started with the car that has Kitty in it. Maybe I will switch it when I do the rewrite as well. Because I love the start with Frenchie, although this conversation is hilarious to me. I couldn't do it justice just now because I'm doing all the voices and there's no overlap, no quickness to it. But it's a quick back and forth. These are people who know each other well. We're establishing that this is a talking-based movie, despite the obvious trope of people driving out to a cabin in the woods. Although it's more of a Airbnb than a cabin. Driving out to this nice house in the woods, you should not immediately, though you would know from a trailer, marketing, you shouldn't know just watching this that it's a slasher film. That's why I didn't start with a cold open murder. Because I didn't want that. I want to feel more like a character drama where people are going to stay at this cabin and hilarity ensues. Yes, that's the opening scene as is. Establishing these characters other than Richie, except it is a sort of characterization in that he's in this car with all these girls and AJ. And it's just sleeping. I think Richie might be one of the characters I'm deleting in the second draft, if I remember right. Which is kind of funny. Oh no, I think I have to keep him, because he's the one who has sex with Polly. Spoilers. Actually, they don't quite finish, if you know what I mean. No, you wouldn't know what I mean. No, you would, actually, if you listen to this show. I did already spoil that part. They die in the Bay of Blood, Friday the 13th, part 2. 2? Yeah, 2. Both killed at the same time, murder, while having sex on a pool table. Or is it the regular table? No, I think they're in the game room. It's the pool table. Spoilers. Now you know when this movie comes out in 8 years that Polly and Richie die in the game room on the pool table right after you're starting to engage in sexual intercourse. The problem. If you've been following along, you know the big twist of Death, Death, Death is that we have 3 groups of people arriving in 3 vehicles to this house. The implication in the way scenes are framed is that they're all there at the same time, but the reality is they're not. This opening group, Polly, Kitty, Elma, AJ, Richie. Am I forgetting someone? Vic. Forgot Vic. It's okay, I think Vic's getting removed in the rewrite. Richie's staying, Vic's going away, that was it. These 5 people are in 2013 specifically. Westworld, Season 1, was in 2016, which means the opening line at the end of Season 1, the big twist is, spoilers for Westworld, the twist at the end of Westworld is because, a bunch of the characters are robots. Scenes that we think are happening concurrent with the main story are not. They happened years ago, but we can't tell because the robots don't age. And so we hear about, I forget, it's been a while since I watched Season 1. We know there was a sort of robot revolt thing. Something bad happened. And then it turns out, no, that hasn't happened yet in part of the scenes we're watching. Which is a fantastic twist as we get into the last episode when we realize that Bernard is Arnold. Or is that a twist for later? That Bernard is a robot is the big twist. And well, it's kind of this double twist is that he's a robot. And so these scenes between him and, I want to say Dorothy. Is Evan Rachel Wood's character called Dorothy? That doesn't make sense suddenly. That doesn't sound right. Anyway, Evan Rachel Wood's character and Jeffrey Wright's character have been having these conversations, and those conversations could have been happening whenever. Because the fact that he's a robot also means some of these scenes were him programming her years ago. Maybe not even him, but his human self before he was a robot copy. And some of them may have been him testing her later during the events that we're watching. And some might be her testing the robot version of him. And the conversations just kind of flowed like they were all in the present, but they're not. Some of them might be, but that's the thing is at the end of that season, all these things are happening at the same time, but also aren't. And so that was why I wanted Death, Death, Death to literally start with a conversation referencing Westworld without being too specific. Polly is describing the twist to, who's she talking to? She's talking to, not AJ, she's talking to Vic and Elma. Like she's talking to Vic. And not say what the twist is, but the opening line is that there's a twist. And so it's like when you watch Death, Death the second time, it's like, oh my god, it's set up from the opening line of dialogue. But I realized this morning they can't be talking about Westworld. And if they're not talking about Westworld, that means they can't segue into Yul Brynner, they can't segue into the Kojak Columbo thing, and all this entire conversation just goes away. The fact that Elma is doing impressions, they're going to have to be completely different impressions. Because I have to find a reference. I think I figured out what I want to use, but I got to go watch it again and figure out how to reference it right because of the different actors, different setup. Who are they confusing it with? Is it Elma saying she doesn't want to talk about musicals and there's bad, problematic power dynamics? Which would be interesting if Polly reacted to that, given the power dynamics later between her and Richie. I got to remember that. But I gotta rewrite the entire scene, and I might actually start with the next scene, which starts with, I forget how to describe it. Let's see, interior minivan day, in the back is a folded up wheelchair with the luggage. Frenchie, exchange student wearing even less than Elma, is currently half over the back seat digging through the bags. I might even change it so literally the first thing we see is not from the back of the car, because I was thinking we were coming in through the back window on this view. And Frenchie is leaning over the back seat, not more than leaning, just like she is half completely in the back with the bags, looking for something. I don't even remember now what she's looking for. But anyway, the whole point in this part with Frenchie is we get the setup of her being entirely inappropriate and not observing any normal boundaries that people might have. And in the car with her, among the other passengers, is Marty, who is a 12-year-old boy. And in a reference to, if you've seen, I hope you've seen, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, that's the fourth Friday the 13th film. Think of this scene with, I just hit a blank on his name. It's Corey Feldman's character. He's also in the fifth one and the sixth one, the same character, played by 3 different guys. Oh, wow. Well, they're on my slasher film clout. No, it's fine. I've watched hundreds of slasher films since September last year, so the fact that I can't remember the character in one of my favorites, whatever. But him reacting to the girl in the house across the way, taking off her shirt. And he's such a goober and a dork about it. Looking at her, getting excited, covering his face in his pillow, looking again, and then his mother walks in and interrupts. So he pretends to be asleep. Was going for a feel of that is that Marty is seeing something he shouldn't. And it is, I might even start with that shot inside this van. Maybe even be the first shot of the movie. Because Marty is also a main character, as it were. And so we start with him looking at Frenchie's butt. Because she's climbed over the seat behind him. And he's just looking back at her. Which then Mary Jane doesn't like. Although Mary Jane is no longer Mary Jane. I gotta remember who gets switched to who. I got post-its here for that stuff. But maybe I'll start with that. So the first, almost the first shot of the movie would be Frenchie's butt in short shorts. Because Frenchie and Marty, their part of the story is taking place in 1985, so I wanted to feel more like a 80s slasher in that section of the story, where it's a little more gratuitous nudity and skimpy clothing. That's where the sex scene happened. Well, one of the sex scenes. In the 99 section of the story, I don't think there's any nudity or sex at all. There's not even opportunity for it, really. Because 90s slashers, you don't think of Scream.
Hey, Billy. Would you settle for a PG-13 relationship?
There isn't nudity in Scream. There's no nudity in, like, from mid-90s to the mid-2000s, so many slasher films were trying to be PG-13, and it's really annoying when you watch a bunch of them in a row. How much they're avoiding with not just sex and nudity, but also, and I don't need gore, I don't need sex and nudity in a movie, but you need some of this. You need some titillation to up the game with a slasher. It can't just be about plot. Although a great plot is good. Good writing, fantastic. Love it. Obviously. So, I realize this in the car as I'm about to arrive at work. Fortunately, I get to work a little early. I get there about 10:30, class at 10:53. So, I go inside, get in the classroom, get out my iPad, and go to TV Tropes, specifically go to Westworld to see what TV Tropes calls this, where like time is broken apart in the wrong order. And I end up on the page Anchronic Order, which is described as one step further than back to front. The story order and the chronological order are not directly related at all. Either the storyline jumps back and forth along the timeline, or portions of the story are retold along a period of time already covered. So then I open up specifically the live action TV and the film's live action examples. And I'm scrolling through. There's some easy ones: Memento, Prestige, Tenet, Reservoir Dogs, and Pulp Fiction. Then we got 11/14, 21 Grams, Bad Timing, I don't know that movie. Western called Brimstone, I don't think I've ever seen that. Citizen Kane. Oh, that's more of just a basic flashback thing. I don't think a basic flashback should fit here. Oh, I didn't realize that. It's been a while since I've seen Citizen Kane. The flashbacks are not in chronological order. Their order depends on who they're interviewing. I don't remember that. Confidence, Deadpool, Dodger's Dust. I focused in on when I got to this because Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind came up, and I'm like, ooh, if I could reference Eternal Sunshine, that would be great, because that's like my favorite movie. If I could reference Eternal Sunshine, great. And if I did that, then one of these people in the opening scene would definitely have like bright orange hair, or blue hair and an orange hoodie, just to be fun. But I couldn't figure out an exact way to pull out of it. I mean, we could get Jim Carrey playing something, and then that would give some voices that someone could do, but would these characters know Jim Carrey voices? I mean, they may have seen like the Ace Ventura movies, but they do the alrighty then kind of nonsense. I don't know. I wondered briefly if I could find something in this list that involved, say, Fred Savage, or I can't remember names. Columbo, Grandpa from Peter Falk. That's a hard way to search. And then I'm going through here. Exotica, great movie. The Fountain, good movie. Go, fantastic movie. Love the structure. It's kind of the reverse of what I want, but I love it. A whole bunch of things in here. There's a whole section here on MCU movies and how they play out of order, and I'm like, that's not the same thing, but whatever. Molly's Game, Mr. Nobody, Mulholland Drive, cool, good reference. The fact that the Paranormal Activity movies are out of order. Their photo for this page is the Chronicles of Narnia books, because they're in the wrong order. Primer, Premonition, bunch of time travel things, Saw. Live action TV, we got Arrow, Class 1. Weirdly, what they don't have on this page is the thing I ended up thinking of as I'm reading through this page. Because we got Den and TV, we got Doctor Who, Dead Man's Gun, The Event, Firefly episode Out of Gas, yeah. Good plot, Good Guys, Good Place, Haunting of Hill House. Lots of things. Including the new version of Interview with the Vampire, which is a really good show. I like it. Lost. But the thing I thought of, because it fit a little closer, is Frequency. I don't remember who's in the TV version of Frequency that came later, but the movie version is Dennis Quaid is the father. So I could use some Dennis Quaid reference, but what do teenagers in 2013 know about Dennis Quaid? So then I gotta think, okay, what is that guy's name? Jim Caviezel. Oh, he's Jesus. That could be fun. Sean Doyle, Andre Brower, Elizabeth Mitchell. Who's the killer in this? Is it Noah Emmerich that ends up being the killer? Oh, spoilers. So I definitely need to watch the movie again. Oh, these names are so fake. Frank Sullivan. Just doesn't sound real. I mean, that's a real name, yes, but Jack Shepherd. Outside of Lost, stop with that. Jim Caviezel could be interesting, though. This is a reference because, yeah, he's Jesus in the Passion of the Christ. AJ would know him for sure from other movies. Wait, when did Passion of the Christ come out? Now I gotta double check years. Okay, Passion of the Christ was 2004, so plenty of time ahead of 2013. He's in the final cut? Cool. Deja Vu, interesting. Oh, right, he's in the remake of The Prisoner. So there's things I could go for here. Yeah, I could work with Jim Caviezel, I think, especially because... what are the... It's gonna be weird, because the references have to change, and that means the references to the references have to change. The jokes about the people not getting each other's references. Part of the setup for this whole conversation is to set up later. There is a conversation later which was so hard to write. Like, the climax of the film is a conversation where we have people in 3 different time periods trying to have a conversation and figure out what's going on, but because the time periods, only certain people can hear each other, and so I had people talking over each other or past each other, repeating things that other people say so other people can hear them, while trying to make it all make sense. And I think the actual execution, it would make sense, especially for the viewer who all kind of hears all of it at once. But this scene was to set that up, is even in the same time period, the same location, these characters are talking over each other and around each other, and it's part of, being friends, is they're able to do this. The fact that they know each other well enough to do this. That whole thing about, how did I phrase it? Comfortably tag teaming this one with Polly. AJ and Polly used to be best friends, and when AJ came out as trans, that put a sort of divide between them. Not that's particularly bad, just they're not quite best friends anymore. And so that's part of the setup, and we're setting up these dynamics, including the phone call that Kitty doesn't answer, Elma doing voices, setting up a bunch of characters and a bunch of character dynamics in a single conversation, which was really fun to write. The one later was hard to write. This one was fun to write. And now I have to rewrite it. And I hate it. I can't even switch it. I can't change it to 2016 because then that changes the math of everything. Big spoiler. Not only does the story take place in 3 different years at the same time, the story specifically takes place 14 years apart, because the killer only shows up every 7 years. And if I switched from 2013 to a different year, I'd have to switch the other things, and I need 85 to be 85. I don't need 99 to be 99, but if I switch 2013 to 2016, it changes the thing, because now those aren't 28 years apart, they're 31 years apart. Ugh. If I put in 2018, 33 years apart, I could work for it, because it's divisible by 3. Make it 11-year gaps. Then we got 85, 96, 2007, 2018. Then it doesn't make sense why these 3 years are connecting. Not that there's an explanation in the film exactly, but for me in my head, it's because they're specifically the 14-year gaps, and it's personal connection between 85 and 2013 is what makes this leap and gives Kitty this particular focus. Which will tie directly into Death Part 2 when Kitty comes back later and brings other sort of psychics to try to connect with all the different years that people died here. Can I change the math? I don't think I can change it to 11. If I could change it to an even number, if it's 32 years, that'd be 2017. Then we have a 16-year gap. That could be 4 8-year gaps? Wait. So what would be the middle? The middle would be 98? No. 2001. Oh. That might be possible, but that changes so many pop culture references. These are characters who talk about pop culture references. These are characters who talk about movies, talk about books. As I said, this is a conversation-based movie that just happens to be a slasher and just happens to involve a twist in time. By the time you hear this, I hope I'm working on the actual rewrite and I can update you next week as to how that went, or is going, and what I actually ended up doing. Ugh. I might use frequency, or I might have to change the years, which changes the whole structure of the trilogy. No, that won't work. We'll end on that. It won't work because I need the killer to graduate high school in a particular year because the flashbacks in Death, Death, Death Part 3. Fuck.
Cut.
Yeah, we'll end there. Fuck.
You're still here?
It's
over.
Stuff that dreams are made of.
It's a passport
Go home.
to another world.
Go.